Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Beginning Investors Group Online, also known as the Big O. I'm your host, Dustin Griffin, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate you spending your evening with us. We're going to have a great show for you tonight. Just so you know, the Beginning Investors Group is an online educational group for new investors who are just getting started in the business, as well as new again investors who may have taken some time off from real estate investing and who are getting back into the game again. The entire purpose of this group is to help you get your first deal or your next deal. And we do that by providing free, high quality information for you to help train you and get you up to speed quickly. Tonight's no exception. We've got my good friend Roger Blankenship here tonight, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. Also, I want to make the announcement, in case you haven't noticed already, that we changed our meeting date from the fourth Wednesday to the fourth Tuesday. We had a scheduling conflict with our property protege group, so I pushed it forward a day. So this will be our new official meeting date, the fourth Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. right here on Zoom. Also, I want to let everybody know that we are broadcasting live here from my office in Beaufort, Georgia. We're broadcasting to Atlanta REIA, Tampa REIA, Charlotte REIA, Savannah REIA, Chattanooga REIA, and anybody else around the country who may be listening in tonight or around the globe. Again, we really appreciate you guys all being here with us tonight. Also, I've made a few updates since last month. A lot of people ask me where they can go to watch the replays of Big Online. And I put the replays up in a couple places that should be fairly easy for you to find. If you are a YouTuber, you can go to youtube.com/Atlanta REIA. And if you scroll down, you'll see videos for the Beginning Investor Group Online. I've got the last 3 months put up there for you. It's going to take me a little while to get all the older ones up, but I've got the last 3 up there. One with Paul Rosano, one with Tom DiAgostino, and last month with Tangi. So if you want to check those out, go to youtube.com/Atlanta REIA. Be sure you subscribe to our channel while you're there. If you like to use Facebook, I created a brand new Facebook page called Beginning Investors Group Online. It's that really long URL you see there on the screen. And you can go there and look under the video section and see our replays as well. So within the next few days, I'll take this recording, edit it a little bit, and I'll throw it up on YouTube and on Facebook for you to watch anytime or to share with your friends. So this Facebook page is a really long link. There's a shortcut right there on the bottom of the screen that says bigo.co/replays. That is a shortcut to that longer Facebook page if you don't want to type all that in. It's bigo.co/replays, and you'll be able to watch all the future replays of the Beginning Investor Group Online if you want to. Also like our page while you're there if you don't mind. So I'm excited tonight to have my good friend Roger Blankenship on the webinar with us. He's going to be talking tonight about knowing your numbers. So when it comes to investing in real estate for fun and profit, you know it's all about the numbers. What's the old saying? If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So you've got to know your numbers. If you're off on your numbers, you may barely break even on a deal, or you may lose big time. And you may end up going to a really expensive seminar, what we call a life seminar. Yeah. So losing money on deals is definitely not fun. It's not profitable. And you need to know your numbers before you buy so that you can limit your risk going into the deal, especially if you're going to be fixing and flipping properties. So tonight, Roger's going to teach you the importance of knowing your numbers. He's going to talk to you about the most important numbers that you need to get a grip on, and that is the after repair value. What's the house going to be worth fixed up? What are the repairs going to cost you? Because you're just estimating it initially. And then the cost of funds. If you're going to borrow money, what's it going to cost you? What's it going to cost you to borrow the money? What's it going to cost you in points and interest? How much is it going to cost you to hold? So he's got a lot of really good information he's going to cover tonight. So I'm really excited to have him here. Roger, welcome to the webinar tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you here. And like I said, it's a really exciting topic. This is going to be a great webinar tonight for new investors who are just getting into the business or getting back into the game, especially if they're interested in wholesaling houses or fixing and flipping. Because 2 key components of the Mayo formula is the after repair value and the repairs. So if they don't have those two numbers, they're going to have a hard time using a formula such as the Mayo formula, which, by the way, stands for the maximum allowable offer. So
Right.
again, Roger, I'm really excited to have you here tonight. It's going to be a great webinar. I know you just did this a very similar talk last night at our Atlanta REIA West group, and I heard it was very well received, and you got a lot of really good questions.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of questions, if you guys have any questions throughout the webinar, please send them in via the Zoom interface. If you look on the interface, there's something that says Q&A. Send in your questions there. There's also a chat box, but the chat box is not the appropriate place to send in questions because it's just a long feed as people chat with us, and your question will get buried. So if you have a good question, send it in via the Zoom interface, the Q&A interface, and we're going to do our best to get them answered. Roger's going to go through his presentation with you, and it's not necessarily a formal presentation. He's got a lot of tools and things he's going to show you, and he'll open up to questions, and I'll come back on and I'll feed him your questions and get them answered live. Sound good?
Sure. And if you see a question that you need to just go ahead and interrupt me with, feel free. Okay. It's all good.
And I do that sometimes, but I would definitely want to ask your permission in advance before I make you lose your train of thought.
Yeah, that's all right. I can catch the next one.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well, everybody at home, are you guys ready for a good webinar tonight? It's on a fascinating topic. I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you want to say hello to Roger, just say so via the chat interface. The chat interface is for saying hello, letting us know if you have any problems with the audio, things like that. But if you have questions, don't forget to use the Q&A interface. And Roger, you can probably open up the chat interface and see a lot of the chats coming in, a lot of folks saying hello, how excited they are to be here tonight. Again, we're excited to have you. So whenever you're ready to take the screen, go ahead and take it from me. And if I stop my screen share, I will.
All right. I'm going to talk for just a minute, then I'll take the screen.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Glad to be with you. Dustin, thank you for the opportunity. And I want to thank Gordon for having me over at the West Atlanta REIA meeting last night. Had a blast. And I showed one of these tools last night, but tonight I'm going to show you several other things that I did not show last night. So buckle your seatbelts because it's going to come at you kind of fast, but later on I'll tell you how you can maybe access some of these things for yourself. But as I show you the tools, I want you to know something. All the spreadsheets and everything that I have and that I use in my business they were developed because I needed them. And they were developed around my needs. And over the years, I've tried to make them a little bit easier for other people to use, but I wouldn't call them necessarily just a dead simple graphical user interface. Okay. So you have to think about it a little bit, but the reason I'm going to show you these is I want you to feel encouraged to think about your own business and the way you're doing things and follow a logical progression and develop tools similar to this if you want to. If you don't want to, or you don't think you can, well, we can talk about that a little bit more. But I thought what we would do to start is, everybody's looking for deals, right? And everybody wants to have something to do and a project to work on. And so I gave this some thought, and I thought I would share with you my number one way of finding deals. Is that okay? All right, here we go. My number one way of finding deals is I go to a lot of networking meetings and I stand up and say, hello, everyone. I'm Roger Blankenship and I'm a cash buyer. I can close fast. If I like the deal, I can close in a week. All you got to do is send the deal to me at rogerbuyshomes@gmail.com. So my first suggestion to you is, you're going to have a website and everything for your business, but you want to make an email address that's easy for people to look at. And I like a separate email address also, because that way my acquisitions team member can take a look at it and filter out everything before it actually comes to me. Because I showed someone last night at the meeting, I didn't check my inbox on rogerbuyshomes@gmail yesterday, and I had 89 emails waiting for me to go through today, because I go to a lot of meetings and I say the same thing over and over for years. And out of 89, you would think there will be 2 or 3 that I want to make an offer on. And yes, that's the case. I selected a couple of them from the box today that I'm not going to make an offer on, not because I'm really trying to pick on anybody, but I just want you to show you the methodology. All right, now
Before you get into that, it's probably worth mentioning, since you mentioned networking and getting out and going to these meetings, I didn't mention this earlier, but Roger, if you're in Atlanta or the Atlanta metro area, Roger runs the Creative Deal Makers Lunch every single Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. down in Midtown.
Yes.
Yep. Roger also runs the Flipping Atlanta event on the second Thursday of every month here in Atlanta, over in Dunwoody at Rome, right over there by Perimeter Mall. So that's that's 5 to 6 meetings, depending on what month it is, right there that you can come and network and share deals. Roger also shows up often at our Beginning Investors Group, which is on the third Monday of each month, as well as the Atlanta REIA main meeting, which is on the second Monday of each month. So he really does get out there and press the flesh and network a lot. He goes to Haves and Wants. He goes to Ramon Took's Deal Makers. So he gets out there, and that's one of the reasons he gets as many deals as he does, because he networks, tells people what he does, and says, bring me your deals.
You know, the other thing I do is I do a pretty thorough job of looking at what's in the foreclosure auction, and that's still my best source, but that's a subject for a different day. Right now, I wanted to take a look at some things that come to my inbox. Now, Dustin hit the nail on the head when he said you have to know your numbers, and the numbers that you have to know are, of course, you have to know your ARV, you have to know your repairs, and you have to know the cost of the money. And of course, you have a bunch of different options for getting your deal funded. And I'm going to go through some of those with you in the next little while. But what I want to do is I want to share my screen with you. And the first important tool that, let's see, I clicked the wrong button. My bad. Hold on. I clicked this button. The first important tool that I'm going to show you is probably going to take some of you by surprise. This is the part that I thought might take you guys a little bit by surprise, because if you are not a realtor, this is going to be the number one place you need to go. Now, actually, I don't usually bother to go to google.com, but you know, I just wanted to illustrate the point. Now, I'm going to just pick a property that I got in my email. It actually came in a couple of days ago, and it may already be sold by now, but it is 97. Whoops. Haygood what? Avenue, Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia. And I just click on this. And now I know that this is not actually accessing the MLS, and I'm okay with that, but I get some good information. The first thing I see here, and almost always the first thing you're going to see, is a Zillow link. And so I also see that it's in Peoplestown, and that tells me something. If you're familiar with the Atlanta area and you're kind of familiar with your neighborhoods, then you know Peoplestown is down there by what used to be called Turner Field. Okay, so I click on the Zillow. And now I don't use Zillow like Don DeRosa does. He's a master at Zillow, and so I'll let him continue to teach that. But what I do with Zillow is disregard this estimate. I just get information about the house. We see here that it was built in 1930. It's a single family. The lot's 5,000 square feet, 2 parking spaces, 3 bedrooms, 1092 square feet. And really, that's all I want out of Zillow. I know I'm looking at a 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom house. And so I go back over here, and I like Redfin. I like it a lot. If Redfin's not in all markets, if it's not in yours, I'm sorry. But I tend to go here because they sometimes they use Google Street View to have pictures a lot. And so here's a picture of the house. Here's a little description of the house. And I read through all this stuff. And right now I'm just going to blah, blah, blah over it. And see, here's some more, a lot of the same information about the house too. And this kind of confirms, and believe it or not, occasionally there is a difference. When there's a difference, if it turns out I'm interested in the property, then we have to go digging into the official records to see what it is. But as you start looking through the information here on Redfin, you could see that there's unfinished square feet of 1,092. So what does that mean? Does that mean maybe there's a basement? That doesn't look like a basement lot. Who knows? If there's a basement underneath that house, I'm not doing anything with it. It's going to remain unfinished. So I'm going to still continue to operate as if this is a 1,000 square foot house, and what I'm going to finish up with. I get down here to this screen right here. It's just by scrolling down, okay? This confuses me sometimes too, but don't worry with this map right here. Go down to the map below where you see map nearby homes for sale and click on that. This is where I get most of my information that I rely on when I'm trying to figure out what something is worth. and it's going to bring up the map. Now, up here, there's a Redfin search bar, and it just says Atlanta in it. Well, we don't want to go with Atlanta. We already found out that the house is in Peoplestown, and this is a pretty cool feature that Zillow has. Is it Peoplestown? Yeah, Peoplestown. See, it even brought it up as a place. Peoplestown, Atlanta. And now watch what Redfin's going to do. It's going to actually draw a line around the Peoplestown area and show you what's in there. All right, now this is okay, but by default, Redfin doesn't include the sold houses. So follow me over here to the right-hand screen where it says more filters. I click down on that, and you see the for sales are on, and I'll leave that on, but I really want to see what's sold so I can compare. And when you click that, you see a whole bunch of other properties pop up. And I just kind of look to see if I've got 8 or 10 to choose from. And so far, this looks pretty good. If I needed more, I would click on the last 3 months and maybe make it 6 months or something. But now we've got to have a little bit more filters. That's everything in this area, and not all the houses are the same. Remember, we're dealing with a 1,000 square foot house. So I'm going in here and I'm going to say a minimum of 750 square feet and a maximum of, let's say, 1250 at the most, just to see what's left. Okay, now the ones in blue are the ones that are sold, and those are actually fairly close to our size. So these are some things that we might look at. And when you see the, like this one for 146, and I click on that for 146, it goes over here and we get to see pictures. And we could kind of scroll through it and see what the pictures look like. It sold for 146 and nothing had been done to it. So that's a little encouraging. Now, up until now, I haven't even really paid attention to what the wholesaler said to me. So let's see what they're selling. They're saying they want 190,000 for it, and the comps in the area are 300 to 500. Mostly cosmetic repairs. You can do a complete rebuild to maximize your profit. The tax record says 2-1, but we've already walked the property, and it is indeed a 3-2. All right. So they're saying the comps are in the 300 to 500. All right, everybody. What do you see in the 300 to 500? I see 180 is the highest comp, and that's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Just to give them the benefit of the doubt, let's go back to our filters and maybe raise the square footage to 1,500. I don't know how much I would even count this, but let's just see what it does. I applied the filters. I don't see anything good. At this point, I tend to just walk away because I get 80 of these a day, and if it doesn't work right from the beginning, I don't try to make it work. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one. That's my attitude, and that's what I do. And you see, I was able to get through that pretty quickly. I know that there's got to be someone listening right now that is saying, man, really, that's all you do? Have you been completely thorough? Have you checked with a realtor or something like that? No, I haven't done all of those things, and I'm not going to because I don't involve the realtors at this point. If I did, I'd be bugging the realtor all day long. I do, though, have a realtor on call in every area where I'm in the market, where I'm looking for houses. And if I find something that looks like it's going to work, even then, I realize that there is a little bit of delay. Redfin is pretty up to date, Zillow more or less, and all of them are more or less. The most reliable and up to date, immediately up to date, is the MLS. But the advantage for that is not as much as it used to be, even a couple of years ago. These other sites are fairly up to date. But in the final analysis, I understand that my realtor does this for a living. And my in-town realtor, Darn Ridgely with Keller Williams, he's better at this than I am. And I don't want to get as good as he is. I want him to stay better at it than I am. So I am basically running some preliminary numbers here to see if this is indeed a deal that I want to look at. And if I get down the road a little bit and realize this is something I want to do, then I'm going to involve Darn. But most of them, I just kind of rule out at this stage. Now, let's take a look at one more. And I'm going to go back to where we started, just up here to the general bar, which this is the same as a Google search. And I'm going to put in 1936 Willow Way, Decatur. This came to me from another wholesaler. And this one, It's a 3-1 with 1,100 square feet. They're saying the rehab is 30,000. They're asking 125, and the ARV is 190. Okay, so you're going to be in it at 155, and you know what? Let's save some time. I can't believe I even picked that one, because I want to show you what I use when I'm kind of running through some numbers on this. I didn't mean to start with this one. Let's go over to this page. Come on, switch. Okay. This is my brand is Flipping America. This is the Flipping America Quick Calc spreadsheet. So right here is the MAO formula. And let me explain some things about the spreadsheet here. If you see these little lilac or purple colored cells, we put data in those, but that data is linked throughout the sheet to some of these other things that we do. And so I give you an opportunity to put some unlinked data into. The blue cells in all my spreadsheets are formula cells. Don't touch them. Don't type over them, and just leave them alone, because they're linked to something else and there's a calculation in there. If you see a cell that has blue text and a blue border around it, then that's also linked information, and it's going to be picked up later on somewhere in this workbook. And then the green cells and the yellow cells are data entry cells. For this particular workbook, if the green cells are there, you pretty much got to have it to get a good answer. The yellow cells are kind of optional, not necessarily, but kind of. And then so let's just go through an example here, just a quick ARV. Using that one she just said, 190,000. Is that what they said? If you put 190,000 in there and repairs are 25,000, then you've got, it's very simple. You don't even have to get your calculator out. Mayo of 108, and they're asking 125. So the first thing I would do with this one is I'd shoot her back a quick note, say, hey, would you be willing to take as low as 100 for it? I'm not going to go to, M stands for maximum. You don't have to offer the maximum. So I'll just see what she would do. Now, I would imagine that someone has already come along and bought this, but just a note to my intern, if you're on this broadcast and watching, that's what we want to do with this one. Okay. Let's go back up here to the beginning on this, and let me just run through the usefulness of the Quick Calcs spreadsheet. All this is it's just it gives you a number of different tools for quickly getting at some of your numbers. I've spent really all the time I'm going to on coming up with an ARV, because Redfin is my secret sauce. I go there all the time. If it's not on Redfin, I'll try to do the same things with Zillow or Realtor.com or Trulia or whoever has some information about the property. And I look at the opinion of value on several of them. I compare notes, and I look as much as I can to find sold comps, true comps that are in the area. And you can get them from a number of sources. Just keep digging. This is the part that they don't show you on those TV shows where they flip houses, the tedium of trying to get your comps and get the comp information. And it can get tedious. And that's why I don't spend a lot of time talking about it when I'm doing these talks either. This other stuff is a little bit more fun, because you get down to some actual analysis. All right, let's say that you've marketed now and you're out talking to someone, and this someone, let's just pick a street. Let's call it Ragwood Avenue. I picked that because no one would name their street Ragwood, I think, because everybody's allergic to it, right? Ragwood Avenue in hot Atlanta. And you see, as I fill in the purple cells, they start populating in other places in the sheet, right? Now, just for the sake of illustration, you're talking to this person, and they say they borrowed $175,000 to buy this house back in 2005. And their interest rate was 4.5%, and it's a 30-year loan. Now, when you see those divide by zero errors, it just means you haven't put all the numbers in yet. As soon as you tab out of that, that goes away. So this basically, and hey, if you're looking fast, you can see up here at the top, what this right here is. This is the formula for determining the principal and interest payment on an amortized loan. And it uses the information in these four cells right here. Okay, got it? Good. All right, moving on. You could put in the market value. And for the sake of this illustration, let's say that we're moving on. We're 13 years in the future now from this house, and it's now worth $290,000. Okay? So you can see that all of our linked cells are starting to light up around the spreadsheet. We have an estimated loan balance here of 126,266. And let me tell you something. When you're looking at foreclosure information, when you get a hold of the foreclosure data, if you read the ads in the newspaper, it tells you what the original loan amount was and the original and the year. It may or may not tell you the rate. Probably is not going to tell you the rate, but you can do a little research and find out what the historic interest rates were during that time. And probably you can assume it's a 30-year loan. They're not all 30-year loans, and if it's not, that'll throw this off. But this will give you an estimated balance. And my friends, that's how I know a lot about what I'm going to bid on at the courthouse auction. Here's the estimated equity in this house right now. And this is the loan constant, which is useful if you're thinking about rental properties. We're not going to talk a whole lot about the loan constant on this call, but it does come into play when we're thinking about things to do with the property. Okay, now the rehab estimator. For the purposes of this this conversation right here, we're going to say that this is a 1,600 square foot house somewhere inside the perimeter. That Ragwood Avenue is in the perimeter. And the house was built in 1998. Okay. Now, you notice that a rehab number popped up there. And if you look up here at the formula bar, you see this complicated thing that has a year and date function and so forth. I don't want to bore you too much with how to do the formula. Don't worry about that part now. Let's just talk a little bit about the logic, how I come up with this number. Because if you are out there and you want to start making offers, I seem to have lost my video at all. Somebody let me know I'm still on.
You're definitely still on.
All right. Hey, there. I found the video now. It was hiding behind the.
Yes, a little thumbnail that usually goes off to the side.
Yeah. Well, I've got multiple screens going here. So
I've got 4 going myself.
All right. So where was I? I lost my own train of thought there, Dustin. All right. Oh, I was going to explain some of the logic behind this estimated rehab. All right. I sat down a few years ago because we're doing so many offers, trying to make offers from the desktop. And at the same time, we have our people that are out there running around looking at houses that are in foreclosure. And the only thing you can do is just drive by. If people are living there, you're not going to get out and ask them to take a tour of their house. They're not having a very good month because they're about to lose their house in foreclosure. They're not happy to see you. And a lot of people are tuned in, even the people that slow down and take pictures of their house, because they're getting a lot of it. Okay. So we try to be sensitive about that. And we have to get pictures and move quickly. And we have to come up with repair numbers. And, you know, honestly, after 10,000 tries, we have made a few a few mistakes. But we have always improved, and we've gotten better at this. So here's the logic behind this number. And I regret that it came out to a nice even 50,000 because that makes it sound like we're rounding things off. In fact, because of that, let me just change this 1996 and see what it does. Okay, it went to 51,000. So here's what happens. When you're rehabbing a house that is basically in okay condition and you're not moving any walls and you're not adding any square footage, you're just updating what is there, and you're maybe putting new appliances in, maybe some new cabinets, but probably not cabinets in most cases. If we're not changing the configuration of the cabinets, usually the boxes are okay. Sometimes we buy doors for the cabinets, whatever we have to do to make it function well and look nice. And then we're putting countertops on almost always these days. These days, granted, is yesterday's Formica. However, still in some outlying areas and lower price homes, we'll still use laminate countertops. But we're counting on a certain amount of things that we're going to do in the kitchen, the bathroom, floor coverings, paint, maybe a roof. And so here's the thinking. If you can build a brand new house for $100 a square foot, which if you can do some things about building, you're probably going to be able to get done for less than $100 a square foot, if you've got some economies of scale. But if a house costs $100 a square foot to build, then we're going to basically rehab about 25% of that. And so I start with $25 a square foot on a relatively light rehab, $25 a square foot, and then I add $5,000 for every 10 years of age. And the thinking here is every 10 years, some major system goes bad. After the first 10 years, it'll be the HVAC. After the next 10 years, probably a roof. And so every 10 years, you've got to replace something. Now, if the house is 80 years old, you're going to kind of reach a limit on that, but you're also going to start with a higher cost per square foot to rehab in a really old house or one that's really torn up. I'll look at some pictures that I may get through the wholesaler or MLS, and I may say, we're not starting at $25 a square foot on that, and we may want to go to 50. So if you look up here at the formula, right here in the formula bar is that number 25. You can change that to 50. You can change it to 15. You can change it to 80 or anything you want, whatever you're kind of thinking. And we are just sort of eyeballing here. This is not precise. I tell people all the time, this is no more accurate than the Zestimate. It's a formula. It's just a starting point to give you something to think about. But it does give you something to think about. And what we've learned over the years is, as we've refined this formula and use it a lot, if it misses, it usually misses on the high side. Usually we can get rehabs done for a little bit less than this, especially in the older houses, because like I said, you're not going to really spend another $5,000 every 10 years when the AC has been broken for 20 years or it never had it. But that's where that number comes from, and I was pretty proud that we were able to get it into a formula. Now, if you are thinking about buying this property with a hard money loan, well, first of all, we know that we can afford to offer $152,000 for this house. We also know that they owe $126,000. They've called us out. They're in a bad place. And I love the question that Mike Sherwinka asked, and we use it also. If I pay cash and close in the next 7 days and keep this out of foreclosure, what's the least you can take? And then let them talk. And they gave us a number. Let's say that they agreed to sell us the house for $135,000. I'm going to put that down here as a purchase price, down here in the loan cost calculator. Now we're starting to think about what it's going to cost us to get a hard money loan, because we've got an idea of the rehab, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes a better way to get a more precise rehab number. But we've got an idea, and we've got an idea of the ARV, and now we're going to get an idea of what the money costs. And again, this is going to be a fairly accurate number here, but still, we're just basically getting a read on this to know kind of which way we want to move. This is hold time in days. I like days because there's a measure of precision there. I got the idea because when you go to a closing, your payments and your taxes are prorated right down to the day of closing, and they have good through dates on them. And so I thought, well, if they're going to operate with that level of precision, it's not that hard for me to redo all my formulas. And so rather than saying we're going to hold for 4 months, we're going to hold for a certain number of days. Now, in my automatic formulas and some of the other sheets, our hold time is whatever it is. And we actually have a formula that tells you what your hold time is going to be based on the size of the rehab and the average days on market in the area where the house is located. But this is not that. We're just going to put a number down there. And the other thing is, you're not going to get rid of a house that you're fixing and flipping in less than 120 days. Because of the 90-day flip rule, you're automatically going to go to day 91 before you can even write the contract. And you're going to be doing well to get it closed by day 120. So 120 is the minimum. But for most average rehabs in the city of Atlanta where there's a little permitting involved, let's say 180 days. We're going to get this one done fast. Let's say 165 days. Okay? All right. Now, when you go to a hard money lender, they've got their terms, right? And one of their terms is what percentage of the ARV will they loan? Now, an alert has popped up down here, and I'll explain that in a minute. You type in 65% because that's what most of them are. Maybe they'll go 70. Now the alert went away. Don't worry about that. It'll come back in a minute, I'm pretty sure. Maybe, it depends. All right, let's say it's a 3 points and 13% loan, and they're requiring a 10% down payment, which is kind of standard, and the closing costs are $1,200. My attorney will close for $750, but there's usually some other documents and fees. Now, the alert didn't come back up. What that alert does, it basically lets you know if your maximum loan amount based on the ARV of the property is not enough to cover the everything that you need. It's going to tell you how much more cash you need, and that's a pretty helpful thing. Let me just, I'm going to tweak a number here just to show you how that works. I know you're not supposed to type in the blue fields, but hey, it's my spreadsheet and I can fix it. Let's suppose that the rehab is really $80,000, and you put the 80,000 in there. Now you see the alert popped up, and it says alert, 25,000 additional needed cash for the deal, and it adds that number to that number, and it says now you need 51,000 total cash to do this deal. That's a helpful thing to know, isn't it? All right, I'm going to go back there and just hit Control Z, and it goes back away again. All right, now this other quick calc right here is, I developed it because I get offers on properties and have for years, and I just want to know, what I'm going to net from the sale, rather than sit there and remember everything to put into my calculator and type it all up. I usually I'm not far away from my quick calc spreadsheet. I open it up and I do this. Let's suppose that, and this, notice none of this is linked. It's not linked to any of these other sheets. And we're going to go down to the deal structures tab in just a minute. We'll continue our linking, but I wanted to show you this before we leave. Let's say on this house we were getting 280,000. All right, and we're going to pay 6% commission, and we're going to share in the closing costs. We don't have to do that so much anymore, but we'll agree to pay $1,500 in closing. The taxes on this house, I'm just making this up, $2,300 a year. And the closing month, that tells this little formula how to prorate. We're going to close it in May, okay? So, and then we got to put our loan amount in. What was our loan amount over here? $169,650. $169,650. Now, this doesn't have to be the one that you're working on to the left. This is completely independent. It can be any deal you've got in your pipeline. All right, this tells you that you're going to walk away from this with approximately 91,000. The we don't exactly have it precise down to the day for your taxes, and your closing costs, it could come up and surprise you, but roughly this tells you what you're going to clear. So if you get a low offer, you can see what you're going to net, and you can decide whether that's something that you want to take. Now, the way to clear the data on this is just delete all the non-formula fields, and it goes back to 0. Okay, back to our linked example here. The next thing you do is you go to deal structures, and these are all the different ways that you can structure a deal on this property. Notice the blue cells are the ones that are already calculated for you. The ARV, all this has come over from the previous page. Here you put the fair market rent, and I've gone ahead and filled it in at $1,600. And here you put the expense ratio. Now, I generally use 30%, and so I'm going to delete this for just a moment, and then you'll kind of see some of the effects of the expense ratio in the sheet. But if I use 30% here, let's go with all of these. If you buy with cash, well, that story's pretty well told right here. If you're buying with cash, you're going to spend $203,000 cash. Your deal return on investment is right where it should be, 29% or 30%. And your annualized return on investment here is 63%. That's because we did the deal in a little less than half a year. And so this formula actually, this is the formula right here. It takes your net profit over your all-in cash price, and then multiplies that times the number of times you could do this in a year, which is your hold time times 365 divided, it's your investment amount times 365 divided by your number of days that you hold it. Okay, fairly precise formula, but I like annualized ROIs because they allow you to compare apples with apples. Okay. If you buy with a hard money loan, you see all these things are blue. We have divide by zero because error because I don't have cash used. I've got to put that in. So how much cash are we going to use? 25,140. I've clicked on it. I'm waiting. All right. So 25,140. And now we get our deal return on investment, our annualized return on investment, the deal return on cash, and the annualized return on cash. Okay, so if you buy with cash, your return on cash annualized is 63%. Nobody is complaining about that. If you use a hard money loan and you execute well and get it finished on time, your return on cash is fairly like unbelievable. But that is typical in this industry when you're using cash and leveraging properly and you know, getting about your business and getting properties done on time. Now I have an option here to buy with seller financing or lease from the people. And I'm proposing that we give them $3,000 down, and that's it. We're not, you know, there's an option here if they have $100,000 equity in a house and they want 50 and you want to give it to them, they can finance that back to you. So you can figure out what your payment is and plug that in these two cells right here. It takes their existing payment, and of course it adds their existing payment to whatever other payment you might have. In this case, we don't have one. Now you've got to also make all your repairs. So here's your total deal outlay, and there's your net profit on the deal, your ROI, your annualized ROI, your ROC, and your annualized ROC. That's if you're doing a subject to, or you're getting them to owner finance the property to you. Here is a little analysis if you're thinking about taking the property, like leasing it from them and then leasing it out to someone else. This helps you to think through the numbers. And we've agreed to pay $135,000, so we're giving them $10,000 down, right? Our total acquisition, though, is $61,000 because remember, we still have to make the repairs. And here's our monthly outgo. Here's our annual outgo. Here's our annual rents at $1,600 a month. And here's our expenses at 30% expense ratio. So here's our net operating income after we have paid our expenses and our debt servicing. We're making $2,800. The return on investment here is 3.94. The return on cash is 4.59. The yield spread is negative 2.14, and the debt service coverage ratio is 0.26. Look, I don't want to bore you with what all of this means. Just know this. If your yield spread is less than positive 1.2, anything less than 1.2, the debt service coverage ratio, if it's less than 1.2, it's not good. If your yield spread is a negative number, it's not good. In other words, it looks like this is where a lot of the people that teach about rental properties are just getting it dead wrong, and they're hurting people, and it bothers me. You look at this and you say, well, the payment is $887 and the fair market rent $1,600. This is cash flowing. You're going to make $700 a month. And the answer is no, you're not, because this payment is principal and interest only. You have to pay taxes and insurance, and you are going to have expenses because things in rental houses break, and they need to be repaired, and you have to pay for them. There are repairs, there's maintenance issues, things are always coming up. You have to have an expense ratio. Now, I know some banks that use 25%. I know at least one banker who insists that you use 45%, that nearly half of your rent is going to your expense ratio. And if you don't use that number, they won't make the loan. And so you have to use that number, and this debt service coverage ratio still has to be 1.2 or better. And not very many rental properties that are being sold out there as rentals really work this way. The so-called 1%ers, if you borrow 80% of the purchase price like you're encouraged to do, you will never make them cash flow. They will lose money. Now, would I say don't do this deal? Not necessarily, because you have an outside shot that it might actually really cash flow. But I would say don't do this, the lease to lease option, unless you have plenty of income coming from somewhere else, because more than likely the law of averages says something's going to happen and this is going to be a problem. This is not a long-term buy and hold. And that's the point. We put the numbers in here so we know what our options are. And here, I would never consider keeping this one for a long-term buy and hold, especially when I can make $58,000 if I use my cash, or if I bring in an equity partner. This is somebody who puts up all the cash. See, my cash used none. Net profit, $29,000. My return is infinity, because any money that you make when you have none of your own money in it, the return is infinity. Okay. This is the quick calc, and I promise you, you can put the information in a whole lot faster than I explained it. The only fields you have to fill in are the ones that are either green or yellow or that lilac color, and it's not that many. And you do that, and you have a pretty clear idea of where to go. This is what I mean by knowing your numbers and knowing where you are on a property. And the what am I clearing section is what am I going to make with this offer? It's not what I expected. And so you can figure out whether you want to take an early offer that's a little bit lower. Now, I want to show you something else. Do we have time, Dustin?
Yep. Time for what, Roger?
Do I have time to show them another series of spreadsheets? It's 7:49. How are we doing?
Yeah.
All right.
And you guys can give us feedback via the chat interface as well.
Yeah. Hey, before I switch over to the other one, the next series of spreadsheets is something that we do once we have a property under contract. All of the quick calcs is designed for deciding whether or not we're going to make an offer, what the offer is, and getting it to the point of offer accepted. So why don't we see, do you have any questions, Dustin, regarding any of what we just showed?
Yes.
Okay.
The biggest question that we had come in was, and several people asked it, where do they get a hold of these spreadsheets?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm afraid maybe I was a little bit more of a smart aleck last night at West Group than I really meant to be. But here's the answer I gave, and then I'm going to modify it a little bit, I guess. Number one, spend several years figuring out this business, doing this business, and working through all this, and then teach yourself how to become a master spreadsheet programmer and write one of these yourself. That's one option. That's not fun. Number two, spend a bunch of years figuring out this business, asking questions and thinking things through and getting your brain wrapped around this stuff, and hire somebody to write the spreadsheet for you. Option number three is become a part of the Flipping America mentoring program, because this is where I'm going to modify it. I mean, I probably shouldn't even be showing this, because really we use these in our business and we make these available to the people that are in our mentoring program. We really haven't ever made them available to the public. We haven't even thought that much about making it available to the public, but maybe Dustin, you and I can discuss some way that we can make this available. Okay, I'm flexible. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, because I was going to say, you opened up a can of worms by showing this.
Yeah.
You're basically teaching them how to fill it out, so they're going to ask.
Yeah, but okay. Well, my real point is I'm trying to teach you how to approach the thinking here logically. If you want to think about what you're going to offer on a property, the Mayo formula is a good one. Just don't go to the M in the Mayo. All right. But if you're sitting there talking with somebody, everybody has to have an idea. When you get a call in from your marketing and somebody, your call screener, or maybe it's you get that basic information about what they borrowed and what their situation is, or if you're pulling stuff out of ads in the paper, you owe it to yourself to use the cumulative principal formula that's built into Excel. And if you don't know how to use it, there's 100 videos on YouTube that shows you how to use it. I'm serious, man. I'm not really an Excel rocket scientist. Anybody can figure this out, but also—
You've done a nice job for sure.
Huh?
You've done a really nice job for sure.
Oh, thank you. My heart, though, is to help people and activate their business. And of course, I want to show people how to flip houses, and I want to share these tools with them. So you and I will talk about a way we can put this in people's hands. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
So you've got some more spreadsheets to show us?
Yeah, I do. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now it's going to get really good. That one is pretty good, but that's the quick one. This one is not so quick, so I'm not going to really fill out everything all the way through all these sheets. And I will say this: if everyone will let me know if they would be interested, if this were turned into a web-based app. We are actually, as of last night, we are now beginning a conversation about turning this into a web-based app, so people would be able to type in an address and have a lot of data filled in automatically, and then type in the comps. And so if you all will let Dustin know if you'd be interested in an app like that, where we could make it available for like a low monthly cost or something like that to help your business. People were giving me ideas last night. So here we go. I thought for the purpose of this illustration, we would just use a property I just bought because I want you to see how it works out in real life. This is 1573 New Street, and that's Atlanta, Georgia. And we actually bought it already. It's already closed. It's a 3-1 that we're changing into a 3-2. Heated square footage is 1026. The interesting thing that we're doing with this one is there's a little shed that's probably 4 foot by 6 feet that's attached to the back of the house. We're closing that shed out and we're opening into the shed from inside the master bedroom and making that a walk-in closet. We've already figured out a way to get the HVAC in there, and then we're capturing a little more space in the master bedroom, and so we're probably adding 25 or 30 more square feet to the house, but it's all master closet. And then that is going to give us enough space to turn around and turn this into a 3-2 without even adding any other square footage to the house. So that's kind of cool. And much credit to the contractor for the ideas, and we're working with them. Okay, you can answer all these other questions. The answer to these questions is important when you're looking at the comps. If the pool really doesn't matter, sometimes a pool is a disadvantage. A garage kind of matters. A house that's identical except one has a garage and one doesn't, they're not identical comps. You have to give a little credit in there for the garage. And what we do here is we put in this information about comp 1, comp 2, and comp 3 and their status. We want to see sold comps if we can. If we can't find them, we might use a pending sale or we might use an active, but we really prefer to never use those. We just use sold comps. And now, since I've already bought this house, I'll just tell you what happens here is when you put in the information about the comps, the program comes down here and comes up with the average sold value for comps and an average square foot cost per square foot, and then it recommends a value here. See, this is a blue field. So it's a calculated formula, and I'm not going to do that because it would take a little while for me to type all that in manually. But this house is in Edgewood, where the average days on market are 15. The house was built in 1992. And once we do that, there's that formula again, popping in a default repair estimate. And the interesting thing is we went through the house stick by stick and brick by brick. And our actual repair estimate is $71,000. So this is not far off. The house was a little bit more torn up than $25 square foot. And we're moving some things around. So it's a little bit more than $25 a square foot. The current as-is value, this only matters to some hard money lenders. It's the only reason it's in here because some used to ask me, but according to the sources, it's around $220,000. We bought the house for $179,000, and we believe we're going to list it for $360,000. Well, we believe that we're going to sell it for $360,000. We're going to list it for $375,000. There's a 3-2 down the street that just hit the market for $445,000. Oh, and I'm sorry, they just reduced it to $429,000, but I hope they get that. All right, this repairs from worksheet is a calculated field. We'll come back to it in a moment because it'll automatically be filled in. This anticipated hold time in days is very important. If we don't put this in, then a lot of other things in this entire workbook won't work. So you put in 180 days here. This is basically just checklists because all this stuff would go into our pre-purchase pipeline. So my closing coordinator can grab this and make sure that we hit all these target dates. The due diligence period ending is a very important thing to put in there because if you're going to we recommend that after you have a house under contract, you definitely get right out there and do a full inspection, make a scope of work, and price it out. Whether you get a bid or whether you hire a contractor to bid it or whether you have your own price database, you need to price out the repairs in detail at this time. And just for your benefit, I have a tab over here at the far right-hand side here called typical costs. And these are the things that we're accustomed to paying. This is our it's just a little bitty database. It's only like, 40 things. that we typically put in houses, and there's costs in there. So you can refer to this and get an idea. And we do try to keep it up to date with what things are actually costing us. Okay. We'll come back to that in a few moments when we're looking at the rehab. All right. So the things here that you really need in order for the math to work out is you need your closing attorney fees. He actually charged me $750, and the title insurance was $350. And so now we've got our total closing costs. You can put a photo of the property here if you need to be reminded. When I have 50 or 60 properties in inventory, honestly, sometimes a photo here is helpful. But I remember what this one looks like. It's the ugly house with a tarp on the roof. Okay, this is something that's unique and proprietary to Flipping America. You're not going to find this anywhere else because I invented it. And it's the Flipping America Investment Property Grade. Basically, these are 5 kind of subjective or kind of unusual ways of looking at a property to evaluate it. One is the market temperature, and you rank it 1 through 5. Few comps, low sales, average, warm, hot. This market is hot. The neighborhood, is it a war zone? Is there some blight? Are there some minor concerns? Is it decent, or is it one of those pride of ownership neighborhoods where they have a yard of the month club and everybody's competing? Well, this neighborhood, this is in the neighborhood over there for those of you that are from Atlanta, where there's a house that's painted purple, and they've painted graffiti on their own house that says "Stop Gentrification." And of course, right across the street, 2 new houses are being built, and the whole area is gentrifying. They're not really stopping it, but that house is kind of an eyesore. And there are some other abandoned and kind of ugly houses, including the ugly one to the left of this one and the abandoned one to the right of this one. So there are some minor concerns. How far away? It's in my home territory. And where this came from is years ago when we started buying all over the state of Georgia, we realized it can be a pain in the fanny to be living in McDonough, Georgia, and flipping a house in Woodstock, Georgia, because the main thing in between there is Atlanta, Georgia, and you have to drive through Atlanta to get to it, and that's kind of an all-day thing. So you have to plan your days accordingly, and you're not going to just drop in at a moment's notice. You have to plan your schedule around that. So if it's not in your home territory, then that's a concern. Now, as we continue to branch out and we learned how to do remote flipping, and we had people in the local areas being basically our project supervisor, this became the answer to this is how far is it from the person who's going to actually be looking at the job? In this case, I'm looking at this one, and it's in my home territory. Now, it's my thing, so we can put my humor in here if we want to, but if it's an ugly house, it's butt ugly. Some are blah, some are so-so, some are appealing, some are just, oh, love it. But this one, we're going to make it appealing. We're going to change some things in the front. And here, how tough is the rehab? We have bought houses that we didn't have to do anything to. We just called up and listed. That doesn't happen when you're buying REOs, but it has happened to us a few times when we're, buying at the courthouse auction. Some are easy lipstick, 4 or 5 days, or maybe 2 or 3 days, and we're ready to list it. A lot of them are 2 weeks. This one is going to take about 6 or 8 weeks to do the actual rehab once we get the permitting done. And of course, there's always the toe up from the flow up, but this one we're giving it a rough. Now, the number 335 doesn't mean anything to anyone, including me. But we have learned over the years that at this point in the process, if it's less than a 250, it's probably not a deal. Stay tuned, folks. I'm going to tell you how you can get a hold of this part of the analyzer for free. All right. Now we go to the rehab costs. And you see the address has already been filled in for us, the square footage, the year built, and the preliminary rehab estimate. What you have an opportunity to do here is you can piece out every bit. Now, hopefully by now you have been to the property and you've written down a complete list of everything that has to be done and some things that you want to get done. Most of the things that you need to do to the house, you're going to be able to find in that typical cost sheet at the back. The things that you don't know about, well, Google is your friend. Or maybe if there's a fireplace, and we don't do a lot of fireplaces, but if there's a fireplace and you need to call and find out what is it going to take to fix this fireplace, then that's where you have to do a little bit more research. Time is of the essence here because you're in your due diligence period. Usually a fireplace is not going to kill you, but if you plan on just fixing a few things and you find out later that you've got to replace the whole thing and it's a prefab and it's going to cost you $5,000 more that you didn't plan on, that can hurt. So it's good to get all of that information up front. And then when you go moving walls and so forth, you need an actual contractor to take a look at those unless you really know what those kinds of things cost. We've done so many beams in the middle of the ranch style houses to open up that space. We know what that costs. All right. In this case, rather than break it down, I mean, I could break it down and you get to choose any of these categories when you're breaking it down, and the unit price, and it carries out the costs. And then it'll come up here and it'll give you a rehab total by category. The reason we do this is this gives me the ability to come in here and look at, for example, a roof on properties. What are we spending on average on roofs? What are we spending on average on countertops? What are we spending on average with paint? And once I know our averages and I start looking at square footages, now this is not fine granular detail, but when you're looking at a lot of houses and a lot of numbers, you can come up with some broad averages. It helps us to even move a little faster. And that's something that we developed over the years as we did a lot of houses. For this one, I'm just going to put general repairs, and I'm going to choose the general repairs category, and one, and his bid was, what did I say it was, 71,000, I think. All right, and it translates over there, and it goes up here to the total rehab. But when you go to the bottom of the page, and there's room here for you to put 39 things, and 39 is kind of a random number. I just basically grabbed it and copied it down until I got tired. We include a rehab contingency, so the number that's going to get reported throughout the rest of this workbook is 78,100. There's a 10% contingency on the rehab built into this. Okay, now we go to the magic, and that's the funding tab. On the funding tab, the first thing you see is what you're buying, what your repairs are, and this is your all-in cost. And then here's your hold time in days. And if that's not filled in, then you got to go back to the first tab and put that in. And it's going to say so. If you didn't have it there, it would say need the hold time. And you would see that all over this sheet, because all of this ends up relying on the hold time. How are you going to know how much interest you're going to pay if you don't know how long you're going to hold the house, right? Okay. So this is a key field. Let me just review the ways that you can fund a deal. ARV, loan cost worksheet. We went through one of these a minute ago. Equity partner cost worksheet. We did a little equity partner thing on the quick calcs, but it didn't go to the level I'm going to show you in a moment. Rate and term cost worksheet. I'll tell you what that's for in just a minute. An existing financing or subject to. If you're taking over a loan, you could put the information in here, and it tells you what's up. Then the total investment loan cost worksheet. Some hard money lenders will loan you a percentage of the total investment, and instead of a LTV, it's an LTI, loan to investment. And not many do this, but in case they do, well, you have it here. And then the acquisition investment loan, almost no one does this, but I did have one credit line years ago that they would loan me money on the acquisition, but nothing on the rehab. So I was on my own for that. All right, let's go a typical way. Let's say you're going to get a hard money loan and you're going to get 65%. All right. The down payment required is 10%. You enter that. And now, you've got to put in points. Let's say 3 and 13. And now it's all filled out. And there's your total cash needed to do this loan, $43,000. Okay. And you've funded your deal this way, but now you need $43,000 to take care of the expenses of this. Now, honestly, this is why a lot of people get into wholesaling, because they look at a deal like this and they don't have $43,000 or $44,000, $50,000 if something goes wrong or if it takes a couple of extra months. Because you take one extra month and look at your monthly payment here. It's $2,341. Okay. Unless you've got a good job or some other source of income, that, you go 2 or 3 months over on this one and you're hurting. So what are you going to do about that $43,000? Well, years ago, I read a book, and it was about 2008. I had my big line of credit, and I was trying to figure out how to fund the deals after the line of credit. I'd used up all my money that I had available to pay for my rehabs. So I read a book on how commercial deals get funded, and I studied this idea of gap funding or bridge funding. And I like to think that I invented gap funding for residential real estate investing. But I didn't really tell anybody about it because I kind of was keeping that as my secret sauce. And then later on, I heard other people talking about it. So I guess I really didn't invent it, but I definitely thought of it on my own. And that's what the rate and term cost worksheet here is for. If you have a private lender who is willing to participate with you on this project, you can go to this private lender and you can tell them, I need to borrow, let's just say $44,000. Well, this is the position of the loan. That's two. Yeah, we need to go over here and put this as in first position. Okay, so let's borrow $44,000 and see what happens. And you're going to pay them, 12% because that's what they asked. Okay, they're not going to charge you any points because they're a friend. So your closing costs here are $11.90 for this loan, and your interest paid is $26.04. Now you're out of pocket $25.78. Can you handle that? Most people can. If you can't handle that, maybe you ought to rethink this because you have no margin at all. But here's another thing that you can do. Let's go over here and make that loan $46,000 just to see what happens. Still need $696. Let's make it $50,000. Let's just borrow a nice even $50,000, and we're going to pay $29.59 in interest. And this number now over here in the funds needed is a negative $3,067. In other words, when you do the closing and you've borrowed their $50,000 and you've initiated this loan, you're going to have a little money in the bank. You're actually going to have $3,000 more in the bank than you need. Is that a bad thing? Only if you go use it to have a night out on a town or make a down payment on a new car. Big mistakes. Now you have a little bit of money left over in case something goes horribly wrong. Maybe you have an extra month or two. Hang on to it. It could happen. Okay, now with these two options in here, let's go over to the funding summary and holding costs tab. And let's see what happens here. Now, we have an opportunity to combine any three of those funding types on the previous tab into this deal. So we're going to combine ARV in first position and rate and term loan in second position. And now this tells us what the loan balances are, and we've got our payments and all this. You can look at this a little later, but now I want to come down to the daily cost calculator because this is an important way of figuring out all of our costs as well. The insurance on this property is, it's going to basically run us about $200 a month, and we're going to have it for 6 months. So let's say $1,200. Oh, no, it's a monthly thing. So 200, caught myself. Okay. $100 a month for utilities, maybe $100 a month to have the a guy come cut the grass a couple times a month, and the taxes on the house, and I don't know that off the top of my head, but let's say they're $2,400. Okay, so our daily cost on this deal is $111. Now, this is helpful because when you get later on, when you get an offer and you're evaluating, maybe it's a little less than you wanted, you can run it through the quick calcs and see what you're going to end up with and see if you like that. Or you can go to your daily cost number and know that if you have to hold the property an additional 30 days, it's going to cost you over $3,000 more. Not to mention, well, no, that does cover your financing costs. So it's about $3,000 every month that you hold it. Okay. So here are just some summary calculations for you. This is your hold time calculation. Look at this. A repair time in days is 73. And I'm telling you, we have a formula for everything here at Flipping America. We have a formula for your repair time based on the size of your budget plus permitting time. Average days on market, you already entered that. The total project days are 109. And the total project time, considering the 100-day minimum, we turn that to 120. The daily non-loan cost project total is $23.67.12. Now, at this point, you might be tempted to go back and change your hold time to 120, since this says you should be able to get it done with 120. But I've already talked to my contractor, and we know that we have a couple issues in permitting, and we also know that he has some issue with some of his bandwidth, and so I'm leaving it at 180 because I think that's probably what really is going to happen. All right, here's your monthly payment, and that includes both payments. This is how much you're going to pay in points. This is how much you need to bring to that closing, and you'll have that from your rate and term friend. your total daily cost, and your total monthly cost. Okay, now let's look at the financial analysis tab. And you can see here that the deal is already split up between ARV loan and a rate and term loan. That pie chart's just there to be pretty. It doesn't really do anything for you. It could maybe give you a visual representation of how the deal is divided up. 80% of your costs are covered by the ARV loan and 18.8 are covered by the rate and term. But the really interesting part is over here. There's only one thing to fill in here, or four things, okay? Commissions, if there's a home warranty that you're putting with the property, lender or other fees or other selling costs, I give you a spot to put those in. The commission is set at 6. You can change it if you want to, if you're using a different structure. But if we scroll down here, we see here's all of our costs coming out of it, and here's our projected profit, $52,726. And that's what you're projecting to make. And the return on your own cash is ridiculous because you don't have any cash in it. So it almost doesn't even count. And this is actually a little error I've got to fix because you actually had cash left over, and I've got to change the formula in here. It's already a fairly complicated formula there, as you see, but I'll change that. It should say the word infinity right there. And when we go back and do the next example, you'll see that. All right. And also the cash needed formula is messed up because we had a little cash left over. Then the Flipping America property grade is an A+ on this property. The property grade is a function of everything we did over here on the subjective tab, this 335, and then it takes a look at the return on cash, the return on investment, wrong tab, the return on cash, return on investment, and net profit. All of those numbers are factored in with the subjective factors to give it this property grade. This is an A+. Okay, bear with me for just a minute. Let's go back to the funding tab, and let's say we don't want to do this for number 2. Now let's be a little more precise here. We need $43,974. Let's bring in an equity partner here to cover that for us. We got a friend. I have a couple of friends who've got self-directed IRAs, and they want to partner with me on deals, and so I'm going to put in $43,974. $43,974. When I enter that, the program suggests a percentage for my equity partner. It's suggesting that I give them 8.55% of the deal. The reason is they are funding about a little over 17% of the deal. Here's the thinking. When I started in this business, my friends, my dad and some of his friends put up the money. I did the work, and we split the profit 50-50. So if 100% of the money gets you 50% of the profit, then whatever percentage of the money you put in, logically, you should get half of that in profit. And that's a good place to start per the formula that I did 500 houses with. When we go over here to the financial analysis, well, we have to come over here and make the second one equity partnership. Then those numbers get filled in. Then we come to financial analysis. You see the equity partner here is making $4,762.20 when the deal closes, and their annualized return on investment is 22%. Is there anything wrong with 22%? No, not really. But you know what? That $4,700 is not really a sexy number. And honestly, it's not that appealing. And I wouldn't even present this to a potential equity partner. Let's go back to the funding tab and see, I've given the opportunity for a percentage override. They have some risk in this thing. Yeah, they might make 22% on their money, or they might not make any money. Depends on how well I perform. So let's give them a little bit more reward. I'm going to suggest that on this one, we make their percentage 25. And when I enter that, their actual percentage is 25. So when we go over to the funding summary, well, we don't have to do anything there. Well, while we're on that, you'll notice that the daily cost number has changed because we're not making 2 loan payments, you see? All right. Over on the financial analysis side, now since I put the exact amount in, this is working correctly, and it says infinity. And here's what's happening. Our equity partner is going to make $13,921. How much money did they put into it? They put in $43,974. So on a basically a $44,000 investment, they're making $13,000 in 6 months, and that is a 64% annualized return on investment. That, my friends, will sell. That's how you can bring other partners in. You can relieve some of the pressure. That $43,000 amount is enough money to cover the shortfall in rehab and also all of your down payment and all of your interest payments on your ARV loan. That money just needs to sit there and make those payments while you get out there and work your fanny off to make sure the deal works. That way, the deal works, it ends on time, you make $41,000, your partner makes $14,000, everybody's happy, they got a great return, and this deal still grades out at an A. Okay? One more example. Let's suppose you have a rich friend who just wants to back you like my dad did for me, and I'm forever grateful for the way my dad helped me get started in this business. Let's say that you're going to do the whole thing, the whole amount as an equity partner. And this is certainly a good way to conduct your business, especially if you're new. Okay? And they're putting up the whole $257,100. So it's suggesting they get 50% of the profit. Let's just jump, well, we'll jump over here, and we got to reassign the loan. First is equity partnership. Second one is, well, that's nothing. So we can just click on that and delete it. All right. Now your daily cost is $19.73. And that's because your only costs are for these things right here. No cost of the money not being paid right now. Your financial analysis, you go over here and the deal makes $76,000. Why does it make it so much more? Because you're not making interest payments. So you make $38,000. Your partner makes $38,000. You make the deal has a 55% annualized ROI. Your equity partner is making 30% on their money. They're thrilled to death, and you walk away with $38,000. No cash in it. Your return is infinity, and the deal grades at an A+. How's that sound? Now this is a really boring pie chart because all of it is taken up with the equity partnership. The last tab on this is a deal summary, and this is just a place for you to put a picture, and I've formatted this so it will print on one page, and it gives all of the information. Here's the property information and the Flipping America investment grade, the rehab summary, all of your budget categories, the comparable sales summary, and this would have all of your comps in. Any information that you put in would show up here. And your property checklist. This lets your potential funder know when your earnest money is due, your due diligence period ends, your purchase closing date, your plans and permitting time, your construction time. All of this is right there in a nice little package that you can hand to your friend and say, hey, would you be willing to fund this deal? And if you have something that's this professional, it has a good shot at getting funded. And of course, the people in my program do this, hand it to me, and get their deals funded. Okay, so again, the reason I wanted to show you all this is because in order to really know your numbers, you really need to put a lot of thought into how you're getting to your numbers. And make sure you dig down and consider every cost. You've got to know your ARV, you've got to know your rehab, and you've got to know what the money's going to cost you. And I showed you some different examples because different funding structures have different costs attached to them, and they will affect the strength of a deal. And it's good to know that there is a little interplay there, and there are ways that you can restructure a deal and make that deal even more valuable, more profitable to you, or better fit for your situation. In some cases, you would probably much rather make a little less money. You know, with the funding equity partnership, I think you were making $38,000, and if you were doing the hard money loan, you were making $53,000. But then you've got a $2,000 payment you got to come up with every month. Or maybe it was $58,000. I don't know. I'd say that especially when you're new, you would be better off making less money and giving up profit and not having the stress of cash flow issues from having those big payments coming due, especially when you get delayed. And look, I've been at this for a long time, 15 years. I've done more than 800 houses. I have a house in East Atlanta right now that I have had for 6 months, and we haven't nailed the first board on it. The reason, we went through engineering. We're going to pop the top and put a roof on it. We went through engineering. We went to the architect, then we went through engineering. We took it to the city, and lo and behold, the house sits across the setback line from the street. Well, the setback line was added 30 years after the house was built, but we can't get grandfathered in. We can put an addition on top. It just can't be in front of the setback line. So we had to redraw all the plans and go back through engineering, and it's just now coming out of engineering, and we're 6 months into this project already. If you have big payments associated with that, at this point, you're tearing your hair out and stressing. And folks, I know this because I've been there, and I don't want to do that again. All right, Dustin, that's what I've got. I'm here to answer questions as long as anybody has them. You can take the screen back.
All right. Give me a second to take the screen back. And we'll start going through some of these questions that came in. Again, the number one question that came in from multiple people was, hey, these spreadsheets are great. How do we get our hands on something like this?
Yeah, well, you and I can figure that out after we get off the call. And I should have thought of that ahead of time. But
yep, and the reason I asked it a second time was because a few people had joined the meeting late and were asking again. So I promised them I would ask it.
Well, okay. And is it okay to say, you know, if you join my mentoring program, you get all these spreadsheets. It's just a part of it, and there's several more.
No, that's fair to say. I mean, you've obviously put a lot of time and a lot of effort into that, and to say it's not for free is totally fair. I mean, it is what it is.
There was a running gag around the office as I was training people on this back when I was single before Diana came into my life. Somebody asked me one day during a training, they said, Roger, do you analyze your girlfriends with spreadsheets? And I sat there and I thought, no, but that is really a great idea. I could create a whole bunch of factors and weight them and write an algorithm. Yeah.
I didn't realize you were so detail oriented. I was very impressed. I'd never seen those spreadsheets myself, folks, so I had no idea. You did a really nice job, put a lot of thought into them for sure.
Thank you. I agree. It's a lot of hours figuring out the formulas and actually making them work.
Yep. So I'm gonna start going through some of these questions. Tiffany wrote in and was asking if that spreadsheet could be used for commercial loans.
You know, I think it could. And I have been thinking for a while that I need to create a version of this for rental and multifamily, because that's where I'm planning to get to the next time I start buying rental. And all I can say is, of course it can. I mean, spreadsheets can do pretty much anything, including analyze a girlfriend. But I don't know if this one is directly. No, I don't think it would directly. It would take extensive modification. Okay.
And Tiffany also had a follow-up. She was asking if you have any formal training in real estate. She didn't define what formal training means, but I'll let you elaborate on that.
No, Tiffany, my formal training is in theology, speech, music, education, and counseling. I have undergraduates in theology with minors in speech and music, and my graduate degree is education with a minor in counseling. So there you go. Nothing is related to what I'm actually doing for a living now. And all of my knowledge about spreadsheets is self-taught.
Yep. And if you're referring to formal training, Tiffany, as real estate, realtor school, no. I do not. Roger, have you been to realtor school?
No, although my broker tells me I could pass the exam because, I think I could.
Yeah. No, I don't know about you, but I've got tons of trainings that I've gone through over the years. Being part of the REIA group has really helped because we have some of the best minds in the business come in and talk to us all the time and teach us. Been through plenty of boot camp. I assume you have too.
Yes, I have. I've been to some really wonderful ones, and I've also been to some of the scam ones.
I've only been to one that I would consider a scam, and I won't mention any by name on the webinar tonight, but that was decades ago. Then I learned to kind of pre-screen my mentors a little bit better and base my classes and things I go to off of recommendations from others. So if you're involved in your local REIA group, we have some really good people come through town and local folks teach a lot of classes for us, Tiffany. I don't know where you're located. Let me know via the interface. Go ahead, Roger.
If I can say this, Dustin, I said this last night, and I want you to hear me say this. After I started affiliating with the Atlanta REIA a few years back, I actually went and changed a chapter in the book that I was writing, which is coming out this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I had some fairly negative. Oh, it's already done. It's called the 10-day investor, the 10-day real estate investor. You won't be a real estate investor in 10 days, but you can read the book in 10 days because it's 10 short, easy to read chapters. Anyway, I had a whole section in there, I'm never unkind, but I was kind of brutal with REIAs because I had been to some REIA groups around the country and others even around here. And just, they left such a bad taste in my mouth. It was a sharing of ignorance and among people who had never done any deals, and an attempt to sell a seminar by a person who couldn't teach their way out of a wet paper bag. And I just wasn't impressed. And I was basically saying to people, don't bother. But then I came across Atlanta REIA, started going, was intrigued. And now, as you know, Dustin, I am a gold business member, the highest level I can get, because I believe in what you're doing. I believe in the people that you bring in. I've had a lot of them on my show, and I'm impressed. I'm convinced, and I'm telling everyone, join the Atlanta REIA. It's a worthwhile thing. Well,
hey, it's worth mentioning we got 2 other levels now. We just created that you don't even probably know about yet. So we got diamond and platinum. So you get something to look forward to.
Yeah.
But I will say this. We created, our groups based on groups that we ourselves would want to participate in. We've been through our share of REIA groups that we did not enjoy. So we try to create something that we'd actually enjoy going to and attending and being part of, and that's what we try to do. We're like family. And we try to only bring in quality folks, for sure.
Right.
And you're one of them. So we appreciate that. And so were you saying you had to rewrite your book or rewrite that REIA chapter?
Well, it wasn't a whole chapter on it. It was just a couple of paragraphs, but yeah, I edited it.
Well, they're definitely not all created alike, that's for sure. So like I said, folks on the line, we've got Atlanta REIA, Tampa REIA, Savannah REIA, Chattanooga REIA, and Charlotte REIA. If you guys want to get involved, we'd love to have you. Come check us out. Tammy wrote in and asked, who pays the balance on a mortgage in a pre-foreclosure deal?
Say it again. I was reading one of the questions.
Yeah. She said, who pays for the balance on a mortgage in a pre-foreclosure deal? Who pays the balance?
Well, we usually try to take those over subject to, and we'll pay off that balance whenever we sell the house. Most of the pre-foreclosure subject twos that we buy, we don't keep. Our out in the beginning is to sell the property, but nobody pays it off.
If it's a short sale, you got to pay it off. And if you're catching it up and taking it over subject to, you're not paying off the balance until you sell it, but you're making the monthly payments.
Right. If it's a short sale, yeah, we just pay for it.
Yep. All right. Now, Winston wrote in, I believe it's from Austin. And you may have to open up the answered questions tab to kind of see where we were going, because I didn't realize when I answered him it hit his question. But
do I need to hit the Q&A tab or the chat tab?
The Q&A, and go to the answer tab, and you'll see
all right.
Winston. He said, hi guys, would love to connect. I've gathered a lot of traction through an outbound campaign and need help helping you guys out. Need to know a bit of criteria that you're looking for and what to stay away from outside the obvious. Basically, he's out of Austin, Texas, and he's doing some marketing, some outbound marketing, and is having some good luck. So he was wondering if there's anything he could do to help us here in Atlanta. And you'll see his contact information on there. But he's basically wanting to know what you're looking for. He was hitting up a bunch of vacant, absentee owner houses that are vacant or absentee, and has been getting a lot of leads coming in to his office, and wants to do something with them. So that is Winston.
Well, yeah, I don't know, Winston. I want to say this to begin with. I know 2 investors in Austin, Texas that are kicking it, and if you need them to be on your buyer's list, I can connect you with them. Buying a lot of houses. One guy did 88 houses just last year. So as far as what we're looking for here, standard thing, I want to be all in at 70% and I hardly ever break that rule.
Yep. And Atlanta's a big town. Any particular areas of town that you personally are looking for?
No, I live right in the heart of Midtown, and I moved here intentionally so I could get anywhere. And because we've been buying all over North Georgia for years, and so it doesn't really matter to me.
Yep. If you're asking me, we're working out in Gwinnett County right now, kind of close to the home base because of the drive time down into the city. It's a real pain. So we like to stay out here in the Gwinnett County area. Don is doing deals over on the Marietta side of town as well. So Winston, we're looking for, the normal criteria, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, or 2 2s that we can add on to. And looking for good deals, 70% all in, whatever fits the Mayo formula if we can get it, and we are getting it. We're not getting them out of the MLS or the auctions, but we're getting them off market for sure. We're hitting our numbers.
Yeah, and I would say if I had a preference, I'd stay outside the perimeter. The inside perimeter permit game, I'm not having any fun with that.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that a lot, and my friends that are rehabbing down there in Atlanta, they know the game. They have those permit expediters helping them out. And like I said, I hear a lot of complaints even from those guys about how tough it is down in East Point and Kirkwood, some of the areas you were talking about. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play that game, you're going to be playing in the big numbers. In fact, Winston was asking, and I just remembered to ask you, he was asking what the average repair estimate on Atlanta deals is. I told him just the ones we're working on, we've been averaging about $80,000 a year.
That's funny. That's what I was going to say.
Tell him what it is like down in the city of Atlanta.
Oh, well, it's 80 to 120. The little pop the top we're doing is going to be about 120, 130. I've got another one of my students is doing, and we're going to do it together because it's a little too much for him by himself, but we're looking at about 110 on that one. So it's not unusual to spend 100,000. Now,
hey, this is what the question that came in, but is to follow up from me. When, because when you talk about repair, and there's all different levels of repairs. There's what you call like an average C-level repair, a B plus, or just really, really nice A-level, A-plus rehabs. What kind of rehabs are you getting for 80 to 120? What kind of rehabs are you doing?
Well, I don't really do anything that I call a C-level. Everything for me is either as good as it really ought to be to fit the neighborhood, and I call that a B, or a luxury home, which I call an A.
Yep.
But I want everything we do to be nice, and I want people to walk in and say, "Wow!" I don't want them to think it's just an average house. Yeah, at least one wow feature.
Yep. And we're trying to do the same thing. We're making them really nice. A plus is what we're shooting for. And when you walk in, because we do what's called the on-site renovation group, where we go out and look at different rehabs every month. Some of them are ours, some of them are our friends, some of them are our students. You want to walk in and say, wow, especially if it's a finished product. If you don't walk in and it's finished and nobody's saying, wow, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. The wow feature, but the letter grade thing is difficult to quantify, and, what you're calling an A plus might be what I call a B. I mean,
it may be.
I want it to be great, but for me, an A to A plus deal is where I'm spending, $50,000 just putting in appliances and cabinetry and countertops in the kitchen, in a house that I'm going to sell for $750,000. Those are my A deals. I don't do very many of them.
Yeah. We're just trying to do our deals where people walk in and their jaw hits the floor. They're like, wow, I got to have this house.
Yeah.
So we stage them. We try to make the bathrooms look really nice. The kitchens look really nice. The open concept, kind of like HGTV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll call that an A. And it's top of the line. West one, we're paying $80,000 on some of these houses. All right, let me check out some more questions, but I just want to make sure we got to Winston.
Oh, I didn't tell people how they could get the property grade.
We're going to get to that. It's on the next slide.
Okay.
We're definitely going to get to that.
Okay.
I just want to get through these questions here real quick.
Sure.
How do you approach, this is a good one from Tiffany, because we've been talking about some of the best deals we find are off market. They're not listed in the MLS for sale. They're not on the auction block. How do you approach buying a home that is not listed for sale? That's her question. So if you find a vacant house or you're hitting absentee owners, how do you approach them if their house is not for sale?
Well, if they're not living there, if it's absentee, we find out where they are and we start a letter campaign to them. It's not one letter, it's a campaign of letters. And, I've got enough deal flow coming from wholesalers and my foreclosure stuff. I don't do a whole lot of this these days, but we are contemplating getting back to it because I have people, coming into the mentoring program that want to learn all the angles. And so if you're going to send a letter, that's fine. But I would also suggest that you sign up for Been Verified.
Yep.
And get a phone number or an email. It doesn't cost that much. And it's worth it to be able to contact them via phone or email. And it's useful for us in our pre-foreclosure marketing, and get a hold of the person as best you can. The best way you're going to reach somebody is if you can text them. Then I just let them know I'm interested in buying a house. I'm looking to buy houses in this area. They're probably hearing from a lot of people. So they need to hear from you a lot, and you need to try to find a way to set yourself apart.
All right. I hope you heard him mention Been Verified. If you get on Been Verified, I think it's like $100 a year subscription. You can be like your own private detective. You can find their mailing address, their phone, their phone numbers. You can find their social media accounts, so you can reach out to them on Facebook or wherever.
Kind of scary, actually.
It's very scary. It's like, wow. It's just a wealth of information for $100 a year. So if you haven't checked it out, you should. You ought to Been Verify yourself and see what is all out there. You will be shocked. All right, these next two questions are related. The first one's from Stephen. He said, I live in Chatsworth, Georgia, about an hour and a half north of Atlanta.
I know right where it is. I used to live in LJ.
What all is included in your mentoring program? Any in-person time out in the field or in your office with you or your team potentially talking to sellers?
Well, when we decided to do a mentoring program, we wanted it to be different than some of the so-called gurus that are traveling the country and hitting up people for their hopes and dreams savings accounts. Yeah. What we want to do is put people on the street who know what they're doing and have the information they need and give them ongoing guidance to make sure they're successful. So our mentoring program is a combination of in the classroom training, and that can be a little overwhelming because, as you guys can see, I've got a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of information. It's 3 days and about 700 slides, but don't despair. At the end of it all, you get a copy of all the slides in a special Google Drive folder that we create for you. You get copies of all these spreadsheets, and we even put in little videos that we have made showing you how to actually use the spreadsheet in case you forget. But probably the two biggest benefits to our mentoring is once you're through with that classroom experience, you're not by any means through with us. You're a member of the Flipping America mentoring family for life. You can come back to the Fix and Flip Intensive as many times as you want to. We've only done it 3 times here in Atlanta, and I've got one guy that's already been through it twice. He just keeps coming because it was a lot. And so we understand that, but you're a member for life. And then we give you a local coach to walk with you through your first 4 deals, kind of hold your hand and make sure that you're doing the rehabs right and that you're following the procedure. Because it doesn't matter whether you spend 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 weeks, or 3 months in a classroom. When you stand in front of your first live property, you're going to bite your nails and think, man, what am I supposed to do? What page in the book was that on? And that's why the coach is going to help you. You don't have to pay anything extra for the coach out of pocket. The coach is going to do a little deal split arrangement with you on the back end. So the coach has a motive to make sure you're successful. And probably the number one thing that we offer that sets us apart is if you're a member of our program, I give you an advantage right from the start that my dad gave me when I started in the business. If I like your deal, I'll buy it. I'll put up the money. You work it. We'll split the profit on the back end.
Sounds good. Now, I told you we had a related question. Now we have another related question.
Okay.
So I'll kind of group them all together. This next question is from Gavin. He said, how can I sign up to be a student of Flipping America, and how much does it cost? I've been trying to do this for a long time. I don't know that he means he's been trying to sign up for your program for a long time, but I think he might mean that he's been trying to get into real estate investing for a long time and maybe needs some help.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I want to say is our mentoring program is an invitation only program. You haven't heard about it a lot out in the media. And we don't spend a lot of money marketing it because we really want to work with people that convince us they're going to take this and run with it. We're not trying to be a snob, but we're also trying to not take money from people that are basically trying to buy a shortcut. You know what I mean? Because that's what some people do when they pay for these seminars and so forth. We like our track record of success with the number of people in our program and the number of people that are actually doing it. And we want to keep that going. So it begins with a conversation with me. And you can schedule a conversation with me. And I know I spend a lot of time on the phone having these conversations, several of them today. And that's okay. This is what we want to do. On the call, I'm going to ask you some questions. We call it a strategy call. And I ask you some questions about your experience and background training, what you bring to the table in terms of skills or related things, including how much money you have to invest. And then we talk about it and we set up the program that's tailored for you. We have a lot of people that have a regular W-2 job. We encourage them to keep their job, even if they want to get out of it. Keep it for now, and let's make this work on a part-time basis. And we have a track for that. So it's individually tailored, and it begins with a phone call. And if you can go to my website, and on every page on the website, flippingamericanetwork.com, at the top of the page, there's a button that says, click here to schedule a strategy call. And that'll take you to my scheduler. You can see an available time that works for you, and you're in. We do it on free conference call. I do them all day long.
Sounds good. You might have just answered the next question, which was from Rodney. He said, how can I find out about your mentor program? So it sounds like they've got to go to your website and schedule a time with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So repeat it one more time about how they get a hold of you.
Okay. Well, you can go, if you like the bit.ly shortened link thing, it's bit.ly/talk-to-Roger. If you enter that into your browser, that'll take you right to my calendar scheduling thing, and you can pick an available time slot. Or if you don't remember that, don't want to do that, just go to flippingamericanetwork.com and click on the blue button at the top of any of the pages, and that'll put you right at the same place.
All right, sounds good. All right, this next question is from Tiffany. How much emphasis is put on tax assessor's website data? Do you use it at all, or is Redfin as far as you go?
Oh, well, we do some things with the tax assessors. We do quite a few things with tax assessors, actually. It was beyond the scope of this conversation tonight, but I like the way that the Georgia tax assessors, a lot of them are using the same user interface through QPublic, and we spend some time looking at things there. We also spend some time analyzing actual comp values and comparing them to the tax assessed values in particular in target counties, so that we can have some sort of a metric. We build it into our analytical spreadsheets for those counties when we're trying to thin out the herd from the foreclosure data. Okay.
Moving right along. I'm just reading through some of these questions that have come in.
Okay, if somebody wants to access the tax assessors, you can just go to gaassessors.com, and that's an alphabetical listing of all the tax assessors in the state of Georgia.
Yep, if you're in Georgia. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, in Georgia.
That's okay.
Don't Florida.
All right, this next question is from Sharon. It's related to mentoring. I don't know if you want to answer this live or not, or if you want to do it in private, but she wanted to know what mentoring cost.
Yeah, let's do that in private. But I promise you it doesn't cost what the big boys cost.
It's not 50 grand?
No.
It's not 30 grand?
No.
Okay.
No. I do have this little thing that I say, though. The proposition that has some merit, because if you want to own your own business, and let's say you want a franchise, let's just say Subway, and I'm not picking on Subway, this is typical. The franchise fee is $125,000, which you can borrow, and then you got to get a location, which is another $300,000 to $400,000, which you can borrow. Subway will loan you all the money if you qualify. So you go into this thing $500,000 in debt, and they project that in your first year, working your tail off, you're going to make $50,000. The promise of these national gurus is, hey, spend $50,000 with me, and I'll show you how you can make $500,000. And actually, it's not that hard to make $500,000 a year flipping houses. the problem I have is in the execution. A lot of these gurus, their companies are so big, they take in so many people, and I think a few of them actually truly mean well, but at the end of it, you're out $50,000 and you have a coach for an hour every other week, or maybe that's extra, or you have an online course. And it's just not the kind of value that I want to bring to people. So I say that because $50,000 to make $500,000 would work. That would be fine if it worked. But even then, I can't bring myself to charge $50,000 or even $30,000.
So Sharon, to answer your question, go to his website.
Schedule a conversation and we'll talk all about it.
America.network. What was it again? Flipping America Network?
Yeah, flippingamericannetwork.com.
And click on the blue tab and talk to him privately.
Hey, can I plug the website for a second?
You may, while I'm looking at these other questions.
If you want to stay on top of what's going on in the world of real estate, Flipping America is actually my nationally broadcast radio show. We're heard by 250,000 listeners 3 days a week, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. I post the shows on the site, but also if you have the iHeart app, you can listen to the show on the iHeart app, and we have something new coming up we're going to show you in just a moment. But on the front page of the website, I have 2 RSS feeds set up that are bringing in real estate news and real estate trends, and they're updated continually 24/7. So if you want to know what's going on in the world of real estate, just come to the flippingamericannetwork.com, and you have your choice of articles to click on. It's kind of interesting.
All right. This was a follow-up from Winston from Austin.
Okay.
It sounds like he is involved with his local REIA group, Austin REIA.
All right.
Good for you, Winston. He was asking you what areas of town you're looking for, and you pretty much said anywhere. But he had a follow-up and said close to 30303, the better, huh? Or 30308. In your opinion, are those good zip codes for him? 30303 or 30308?
Man, I don't know the zip codes like I should. Let me see.
I'm surprised he knows them and he's from Austin.
Yeah. Well, I think my zip code's 30308.
That's probably why I asked. He probably looked up Midtown.
Yeah, I live in 30308. So yeah, if you could find something here, but if you find residential here, it's going to be super expensive or a condo.
Yeah, just because of the Midtown area.
Yeah. I mean, seriously though, if I could find something, there are some single family homes once you get off Peachtree Street. And if I could find one of those where the numbers worked, I would love to do it because it's right around the corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to try to stay close to home. All right. This question is from, and I hope I get your name right, Shelba. Hope I said the right, Shelba. Besides foreclosure auctions and networking, what other methods do you use in finding deals?
The other methods that I have used are mailing campaigns, and I've tried a lot of them, probably haven't tried all of them. My favorite is absentee owners who are out of state, and you can get those lists from Tangi Cousins at foreclosuresdaily.com. I think you just had her on the Big Online recently, right?
She was last month, and yep. I told you guys earlier how you can watch the replay. If you'd like to see that, it was really good. She did a good job.
Yep. Yeah, she's very articulate, and I had her on my show as well. And also, we are connected with a lady named Karen Anderson out of Texas who does a very nice job with lists. I don't recommend that you just Google, real estate mailing lists because you're going to get recycled lists and everybody in town's getting them. Yep. I know that Karen is very diligent. If I buy a list and somebody else buys the same list, 3,000 names in a particular zip code, absentee owners, she won't sell us the same names. She'll make sure that we get different people. And because of that, I get, I average about a 10% response rate from Karen's lists.
Yeah, you got to have a good list for sure. It all is about having a good list.
Now, I don't do probate lists. Tangi helped me with my thinking on this, but I had a hard time saying to people, hey, I'm sorry about your loss. You want to sell their house? There's no way to sound like you really care. In fact, it just comes across as kind of crass to me. Yeah. But Tangi encouraged me just to say, hey, we're buying houses if you have one to sell.
We're buying a house in your area.
Yeah. And so that helped me. But absentee owners out of state, I don't want in-state absentee owners because that's probably somebody's rental house that they don't intend to sell. In fact, the first absentee owners list I bought, I saw my own name on it a bunch of times, and some of my close friends. Naturally, I'm not going to mail to them, but if they're out of state, we tend to get good results with that, and that's one of my favorites. I have a squeeze page, a landing page. My experience has been it gets traffic when I drive traffic to it. If I've got some stuff printed up, and if I go out there and I lay it around in convenience stores or do the little tear off the little thing at the bottom of a piece of paper on a bulletin board in some store somewhere in an area that I'm targeting, that gets some results. I don't do bandit signs. I'm not anybody's judge, but bandit signs, for me, I don't want to build my business on something that is a nuisance and a violation of code restrictions in most communities. And so it's just not the thing for me. But I do drive traffic to my squeeze page, and I also really like Facebook marketing. You can join the buy-sell trade group in your community, and it's remarkable how this works. If I'm ever out of leads or low on leads, I just go to a couple of buy-sell trade groups and just say the standard thing. Hey, does anybody want to sell their house? I need to buy a house, and I've got cash and I can close fast. If you got one you really need to get rid of and you're willing to sell it for a little bit of a discount, hit me up. And the responses come like crazy when I do that.
Yep. And you've kind of come full circle back to networking. Shelva, I don't know where you're located. You didn't say, but some of our top investors, the bulk of their leads come from other investors. They go to a lot of meetings and a lot of groups, and they put themselves out there as a local expert, as a local cash buyer, and say, hey, if you've got a deal, I want it. If you're having trouble structuring a deal or putting it together, come to me, we'll help you do it. So they get a lot of leads that way.
And,
it's free.
Even if you don't have the cash, go to a local hard money lender, and they're dime a dozen. It doesn't even have to be local. You've got some that are sponsors of the Atlanta REIA and probably all your different groups.
You got a bunch.
And get yourself set up and get a proof of funds letter from that hard money lender. And so you're already approved. Then you can present yourself as a cash buyer, because you're going to really, the advantage of being a cash buyer is you're going to close fast. And hard money lenders can close fast if they're already okay with you.
Right. All right. This next question is from Elizabeth. I'm looking to expand my cash buyers list here in Metro Atlanta area. Do you have any recommendations for good and experienced cash buying investors? Absolutely.
RogerBuysHomes@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We've got a bunch. If you come to our Atlanta REIA meeting, you'll meet a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
A few months ago, we did a wholesale panel, which Roger was part of, with 5 buyers. Just this past month, we did a wholesale panel where a lot of those guys on the panel are cash buyers.
A few months ago, it was a rehabbers panel.
Yep.
That's the one I was on.
We were on the rehabbers. You were on the rehabbers panel, and this past month we had the wholesaler panel.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to do a wholesaler panel down in Tampa as well. So come to our meetings, and you'll meet a lot of cash buyers. We also have several Facebook groups. For example, Atlanta Real Estate Investors Network on Facebook, and Georgia Real Estate Investors Network on Facebook, Florida Real Estate Investors Network on Facebook. You'll find a lot of cash buyers on there as well. But get out, go to some meetings and network. You'll collect some names real fast, and you'll find out who the players are.
Come to Haves and Wants on Thursday afternoon. There's a lot of money in that room.
Yep.
There's cash buyers there.
And come to Creative Deal Makers lunch tomorrow at 11:30.
That's right. Yeah.
What's the name of that restaurant?
Baranda
down in Midtown. Come meet Roger. He'll be there.
Yep.
All right, moving on. We got a few more questions left I want to get through, so we can try to wrap up here shortly. So we can kind of start to speed through some of these. This next question is from Steven. It's a great question. Do either of y'all stage your homes after the rehab?
My answer might surprise you, but generally I do not.
My answer won't surprise you. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when they walk in and see this nice rehab we just did, it's all decked out like they could move in tomorrow. It's staged. It looks nice. Your jaw will literally hit the floor when you see them.
Yeah.
So
I I do it if I've got a weird room that's difficult for people to visualize where they're going to put things. I'll stage that. Otherwise, I don't. Now, I've got somebody coming on my show in about 7 or 8 days who does virtual staging. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's online only, right? It's like photos.
Yeah, it's photos for your online presence, but you can print them out and, tape them to the wall so they can see what the room would look like.
Right. So Tiffany followed up and asked how important is staging. In my opinion, I think it helps you get market value or more. The past few properties we've staged and done have got bid up well above list price, just so you know, from staging. Like I said, it makes you say, wow. Especially when you're opening up some of these floor plans and it's just one big open space, it helps people visualize where they're going to put all their furniture and how that home will be theirs. You put these really nice rain heads and do these really nice bathrooms. It helps to add some accents and really make it look nice. Or the master bedroom. So we make sure we stage the living area, the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the master bedroom.
And all that makes sense. And I certainly don't disagree with it. And probably because I've really, made my bones in this business back in the, I started in 2002. And so we had good times then.
I remember.
There was no need to stage. And going forward, in the difficult times, we were just selling houses based on price.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the good old days, because I remember in the early days, we staged our houses ourselves by going to Kirkland's or Pier 1 and just having some fruit in the kitchen or a towel in the bathroom and a shower curtain. I mean, really low budget staging. But now we're anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. I haven't paid $2,500. It's more like $1,500 to stage them, and they'll leave the stuff there for 3 months, and it looks really, really good. If you go online and see some of the professional photos, it looks sweet.
Yes,
it does have that wow factor.
I admit that it does. I just, whenever we're getting ready to sell a house, I do another run through the comps and I look at all the actives in the neighborhood, and we see how we compare to what's out there right then. And then we just beat them on price.
Yep.
I do that rather than stage. It's just personal preference, I think.
Yep. And we kind of do the opposite. We stage them and hope to beat them on price, meaning get more than they got.
Yeah.
Push that comp higher and higher. So check out, come to some of our on-site renovation groups. I'm hoping we're going to do one of Roger's here real soon. He has been asked. So whenever he's got a property ready, he said he'd do it. We do a lot of properties with like Frank Iglesias. In fact, we're going to be looking at one of his new constructions real soon. Don, some of his students. We saw Chrissy's house recently. We do a lot of our students down in the down by the airport. Go look at the properties before the renovation starts, halfway through, or after it's completely finished and staged. So come see for yourself. But I like what Roger said about get on Zillow or get on the MLS and see what everybody else is doing in their rehabs that are listed. See what they're doing, and we just try to beat them. He likes to beat them on price. We like to beat them by having a nicer renovation and getting more. All right, more questions. Okay, this is from Leo. I'm relocating to Charlotte and I'm flipping houses. Can you recommend anyone to work with in this market? I'll answer that if you don't mind, unless you know somebody.
I know who you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, get involved with Charlotte REIA, charlotteria.com, Linda Dana, and Jeff Richmond. They're two good folks. You'll meet a lot of other good folks there at the meeting who would love to help you along your way for sure. charlotteria.com. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I was just going to say I would have said the same thing.
Okay. Lynn asked, do you stage your properties? We already answered that one, Lynn. All right. Winston says, good deal. I really appreciate it. He's the guy from Austin. He looks forward to working with us. He wants to know if you work with MFR. Is that manufactured homes? Is that what that means, MFR?
Probably.
I'm not sure. I have. I don't, but I have. MFR. No, that's multifamily residential. My bad.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking manufactured home MFR. He probably means multifamily residential.
Yeah, probably so.
I haven't, but I would. I haven't, but I would. How about you?
I've only done duplexes and triplexes and quads. I haven't done apartments.
Yeah. Well, those are
But-
multifamily residential, I guess, and so are apartments. I haven't
Yeah.
done apartments.
Well, less than 5 units, it's treated more like residential in terms of funding and that sort of thing,
Yep.
and financing. But I haven't done any of the 5+ units yet.
Yep.
It's in the plans, but you know, we've launched a school and we're focusing on that right now.
I want to hear more about that. All right, this next question from Cassandra. I'm interested in purchasing houses that are in foreclosure. Do you have to go to the courthouse just to do it? Do I get in touch with the bank attorney personally? Is it listed in the HUD foreclosure site as a foreclosure? Cassandra, where are you from? I'm not sure.
Thank you. That's what I was going to ask.
But Georgia is a non-judicial state. Florida, on the other hand, is a judicial state. So if you're in Florida, you can get a pre-foreclosure list from somebody like Tangi. In Georgia, they're published in the paper. And that's where you find them.
There is a resource in Georgia called, it's a website called equitydepot.net.
Yep.
And that's where I buy it. You get, it'll be like if the ads come out on Friday, 4 weeks before the sale, they'll have their list aggregated and ready typically by Monday.
Right.
And you get a comma delimited file, which you can import into your handy dandy spreadsheet. And I buy it every month and do some analysis with some of my super duper formulas. And if you're in Georgia, you're not going to get anywhere by trying to talk to the attorney. First of all, they don't have any reason to talk to you.
Nope.
Go to the house, knock on the door. I have 3 people on my team that just spend their time knocking on doors. We don't even bother with mailing anymore. We just knock on doors.
Yeah, because if you got to mail real quick and often.
Yeah,
But,
every day.
a lot of the people we know that are having success with it here in Georgia are knocking on the doors.
Yeah.
Or tracking them down if they've moved.
Yep.
Getting to them that way. All right. Susie asked, what is the approximate interest paid to those willing to invest their self-directed IRA? So I think what she means is if somebody's willing to loan you money out of their IRA to fund your deals,
Yeah.
what do you pay them in interest typically?
Well, I have a lot of these conversations. Of course, we have a program that some of the people, a lot of people hear me on my show and they go to my website and you can read all about my private lending program on my website. But when I'm having this conversation with somebody, I basically say to them, what kind of return are you looking for? And I really want them to say the first number. And if they say, man, is there any way I can get like 8%? I'll go, yeah, I think we can do that. And if they say 10% or 12%, I'll go, yeah, I think we can do that. Because I'm willing to pay up to 12%. But if I can get it for 8%, why not? So I let them set the price, anything up to 12%, because now on the flips, I can afford this. I'm not going to do that on a rental house. If they want long-term income and they want it to be stable, then I want it at 6 to 8%. But if it's a flip, I can go to 12%. If I'm using them as gap funding, then 12% is reasonable considering they're taking on some risk at that point. And sometimes they will want an equity split. And so we'll talk about percentages at that point, percentage of the split. And that's kind of my favorite way to go. As long as they don't want to put up, $10,000 for half of the profit.
All right. We had a couple people write in on how to watch the replays. So I just thought while we were talking, put it up on the screen. So you can see the Facebook link where I will put the replays in a few days. It's facebook.com/beginning investors group. There's the YouTube page. So you guys can write that down or check it out while we continue to talk, but that's youtube.com/Atlanta REIA. I'll put the replays up there too.
Cassandra said she's from Savannah, Georgia. I saw that. And so in Savannah, you're in Georgia, so go knock on the door. Get the names out of the newspaper. Equity Depot works in Savannah. I used to buy the data statewide. But also, if you're just getting the newspaper and reading the ads, just look for loans that are at least 5 years old and go knock on those doors.
All right. And I think we're almost done. So we had a few more people write in about staging as we were talking. Steven said, what's your average staging cost? Is it price per square foot or by number of rooms? I'll attempt to answer that real quick.
Yeah.
handle the staging myself. My wife does, or my partner does. And I think Chrissy's been paying $1,500 on average. I think Don's paying a little bit more. He's got a little bit more high-end stager. I think she's about $2,500. The next question was, which company do you use to stage? Oh, I can't remember the name of Don's stager. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I have no clue the name of the company that Chrissy uses. She refers to the person by name, so I don't know their company name. So I apologize for not being able to answer that. But if you'll come to any of our Atlanta REIA meetings, Don is there, Chrissy's there, and you can ask them what stager they use, or you can contact them via the Atlanta REIA website. They'd be more than happy to share that information with you. All right, so that's all the questions we had. We did have one come in earlier that I accidentally deleted, so I'll ask it real quick. If you can repeat this real quick, Roger.
Yeah.
Someone wrote in early on, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper. Can you repeat your repair calculation formula? And basically, I think what they're asking about is how you do that formula in your head based on a flat amount, then so much money per age.
Yeah. It's $25 a square foot plus hey, my son just got home. $25 a square foot plus $5,000 for every 10 years of age.
So say it one more time, because I got distracted too for a second there.
$25 a square foot plus $5,000 for every 10 years of age.
Okay, $25 a square foot plus $5,000 a year for every 10 years in age.
Right.
Got it. So that's one of the ways I thought was quite unique, that Roger is able to estimate repairs on houses he's never seen based on the square footage and their age, sight unseen. If he's going to go in there and do a nice A or B renovation, how much is it going to cost? Well, he's done so many of them, he's able to put that formula together and kind of as a rule of thumb and have it work for him. And I heard him say earlier that even if it's a little high, it keeps him safe.
Right.
All right, Roger. Well, let's tell folks how they can get those apps from you. Let me pull up the screen.
Okay. There you go. If you can go to the App Store, either for iOS or Android, and look for an app called Property Grade. And you kind of have to know your numbers, but if you answer the 10 questions, and you'll see the same drop-down boxes and, how far away is it and what's the community like and that sort of thing. You answer those questions and you'll get the letter grade, you'll get your profit number and your return on investment and your return on cash. Now, I do have to say this. Day before yesterday, I found an error in the return on cash calculation when you're borrowing money. And so I've sent it off to the developers and given them the right formula and they're error tracking right now. So there may be a problem, but that's okay. It's free. There's no in-app purchase. There's no upgrade. There's no cost to use it. There's no monthly anything. It's just free. It's designed to try to help you. The other app is the Flipping America app itself. It's in the Android store. It'll be in the Apple store, they say Friday or Monday. When you download this app, basically, you have my entire radio program and the whole back catalog that we have published, and we're catching up on the back catalog. You can listen to it as a podcast, Bluetooth it to your speakers in your car. I had 2 people come up to me Saturday and say that's all they ever listen to now, and that flattered me. Kind of amazing to me, but anyway,
well,
we've got some
good content.
We have 145 shows in the can.
Yeah, so. You got some good content. Like you said, we have shared some of our speakers and. Got some good content. I hear real good. All right. Yep. Now tell them how they can hear your radio show if they don't have the app. Is it on iHeartRadio?
iHeartRadio, just look up Flipping America. You'll see the logo that you were seeing on the spreadsheets earlier. Then you've got it. And you can subscribe to it there on iHeart, and you'll get an email every time a new show is posted. And, of course, you can always come to my website, flippingamericanetwork.com, and you can see the last few that I've posted.
All right. Well, we are out of time, so I just want to remind you once again, if you'd like to get these free apps from Roger.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
If you use my app or if you're listening on my website, you also get all the show notes. And the research team suggests articles for us to review on the show. So we do a news segment on most shows. Mm-hmm. And those links to those stories about real estate around the U.S. and around the world are in the show notes. And so they're still live links. You can click on them as long as the articles are there. You can read what we read and the research studies that we do to come up with the content that we have on the show. That's if you're on the app or if you're listening on from our website. You can't do that on iHeart.
Sounds good. And what I was getting ready to say was to get these free downloads, these free apps, the Property Grade is available in the Google Store as well as the Apple Store. But Flipping America just came out in the Google Store, but it should be out next week in the Apple Store. So
Right.
time you hear this replay, it should be out. And then I think I heard you say you're working on a third one, a third app.
Well, we're actually, now we're discussing turning these spreadsheets you saw tonight into one massive web-based app. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to get with you sometime and talk about how you're doing all these apps.
Okay.
That's not my area of expertise, and you've got 2 of them, so I'd like to talk to you about that.
All right.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Roger, for being here tonight. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Really, really appreciate it.
My
Hope
pleasure.
You guys all got some really great information. If you'd like to say something or say goodbye, you can do so via the chat interface. Drop us a note. We really appreciate you being here, taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Remember, you can watch these replays up on Facebook at the Beginning Investors Group Online or on YouTube at youtube.com/Atlanta REIA. Like I said, I'll have them up there in a few days, and you can see the ones from the past up there now. So our next meeting is going to be on the 4th Tuesday of May. We've moved it from the 4th Wednesday to the 4th Tuesday, so make a note of that. And we hope to see you again here next month. So thanks again, Roger, for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody out there. Have a great evening. Good night, and God bless.